Thanks for joining us today on the Big Blue Podcast. I'm Nicole Bergen, Media Relations Manager at Tulsa Community College, and I'm joined actually because I am filling in for TCC President Lee Goodson, but the co-host of the Big Blue Podcast is Dr. Greg Stone, Southeast Campus Provost.
The Ed McMahon to Dr. Goodson's Johnny Carson, always. Or today to
A lot
Johnny
of people
Carson.
won't remember that
No,
reference.
I know, right?
So.
Isn't that sad?
And we're joining you from the Center for Creativity. Our guest today is Terri Alonso, Dean of Academic Advising, Retention, and Career Services. Thank you for joining us, Terri.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
And this is such an exciting topic that we're going to talk about, the new Student Success and Career Center at Southeast Campus, your home campus,
Yay.
Dr. Stone.
It's such a great building. It's so awesome that it's finished.
It is.
Well, and this question is for you, Terri. Describe the new Student Success and Career Center, and then Dr. Stone, you might add in a few comments.
Sure.
Yeah. So the new center, it's very obvious, and that was the goal, where, the front door to the campus is.
Yeah.
So that beautiful glass building with the murals, the hanging inside, and then it says Student Success and Career Center right above the doorway. And students enter there, and right when they walk in, it's an open, beautiful atrium. In front of them are kiosks where they are welcomed by part-time staff who help them know which service to sign in for. They have touch screen, and then they have keyboard accessible kiosks sign-ins. And then, to the right of that, you have this open area and a patio that's outside by the perk, which is another bonus for Building 2. And then a beautiful learning stairway. And so when students sign in, they are first, asked, what are you here for today? Welcome to the campus. And they get checked into the right place. And when their name is put in, it's displayed up on a large screen so they can see where they are in line for the service area. So that's a big change for our service areas. And I think a good change for students. It also shows the wait time and holds us all accountable. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. And so they can see, exactly do I have time to go and order a coffee or run over to the bookstore or see my instructor and come back? And so once their name is up, the staff member inside the Success Center comes out and greets them and welcomes them back into the Success Center, into their office, where they actually sit down and have a one-on-one conversation. One of the new service areas is the Answer Center. And so the Answer Center has basically introduced the college, this is the first campus, to a streamlined onboarding and kind of take care of business location for students. So it's a one-stop place for enrollment services, financial aid questions, any of the, if they want to drop off a transcript or pick up a transcript, things like that they can take care of in one spot. And then they also can see an academic advisor, a career services specialist. They can check in and go to the the bursar, and so all of those services in one area. So that's kind of the new experience for the student at Southeast, whereas before they would have to walk up to into enrollment services to their counter, get service there, and then go to another line to financial aid and get service there at the counter, and then go check in and advising and wait in line there. So now it's one check-in place.
And Terri, kind of to that point, what's the feedback that advisors, that career specialists, that you are hearing from students about that? Because it really is just dramatically reducing a student's wait time.
Yes.
Right? And
It's
not just one line, but but just the cross-training of Answer Center specialists to handle a lot of those quick questions so that students don't have to wait half an hour or 45 minutes for an advisor during a really busy time, right? So what's the feedback that you've gotten from students?
I think, by and large, the student feedback to, and this is anecdotal, we don't have formal surveys sent out yet, but from the student perspective is that, wow, this is great. And then, surprise, there's not an hour and a half, 2 hour wait. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be able to take care of my business here and not have to leave and come back later. So I think that part of it, that aspect has been an improvement, a huge improvement for students. The other piece is the personalized service. So the one-on-one, the holistic approach to working with that student. And if they are with an answer center specialist and there's a need to hand them off to an advisor, we're doing our best to not have to sign them in to wait in line at the end of the advising line, but to hand them off in a warm, walkover and let them connect with an advisor who's free. So the supervisors and the staff are having to work very closely together to make sure that that service takes place.
And what about the benefits to the employees, the advisors, the answer center specialist, and the other employees that work in this new, brand new building?
Well, I took the opportunity to poll our supervisors on this because I was very interested to hear back from them directly. And, the themes are basically that it's a sense of community, camaraderie that's been built by having everyone in the same place. The relationships between staff has improved in terms of them working together. Our financial aid counselor pointed out, David Victoring, that it's easier to problem solve right then by walking over and talking to someone rather than sending an email and waiting for a response or an instant message. You just kind of walk over and you interact and you get the problem solved for the students. So I think there's benefit all the way down to the student. Not
Sounds
just
like
the
the
employee.
employees are really enjoying that environment that they are in.
Yes.
And the ability to help the student in a faster, more efficient way.
Right. And, having the career services staff commented that being able to have advisors hand students off if they need to take a personality assessment or something and not have to wait, because they're right there. And the same thing vice versa. One of the advisors mentioned it's like the way the offices are set up, it's kind of like having your own neighborhood, and you get to know everyone on the block, so they know everybody down their row, and they're learning all kinds of, and doing fun things like putting animal pictures on by their names. They've kind of all chosen a zoo animal that they wanted to be, and so the whole team had fun with that.
Yep, that's fantastic.
So.
Well, I'm Greg Stone, here with my co-host for the day, Nicole Bergen, sitting in for Dr. Goodson, and you're listening to the Big Blue Podcast. We're here with Terri Alonso, Dean of Academic Advising, Retention and Career Services, talking about the new Student Success and Career Center at the Southeast Campus. But Terri, it's not just going to be something for Southeast Campus, right? We're getting ready to roll this model out to our other campuses in existing spaces that'll be remodeled thanks to a lot of private donations from donors and local contributors. Even though there aren't going to be brand new buildings at the other three campuses, how will students at those other campuses benefit from having their own Student Success Center? I mean, how are we going to ensure that the experience at Southeast is replicated? I guess that's really the question.
Yeah, and I think part of that, I'm on attending the meetings for West Campus as much as I can to help, communicate some of the things that they need to look out for and make sure they plan for. But I think, by and large, the students are going to have the same kind of experience. And probably, at West and at Metro, they already have their service areas kind of in the same area. But it'll be that, I think it's going to be the benefit we kind of unexpectedly are experiencing with the staff being in the same, in an identified space, as instead of identifying as here's enrollment services over here, it's all the Success Center. So we're all part of the Student Success Center. And so it kind of organically happens that the supervisors are working together to make sure the students are leaving that center feeling good.
Well, and you mentioned Metro, even being provost at Metro campus for nearly 5 years, even though all those services are there together on the first floor, I could walk through at 9 o'clock in the morning and a student's in one line, and an hour later they're waiting and about to be called in another line. So even though they're in the same proximity, just reducing that wait time is going to be pretty significant still.
Right, I agree.
And can we talk a little bit about mandatory advising? So this is our second year of going into the ratio that we have, are sustaining at like 300 to 1. 300 students per academic advisor. Talk about the benefits that students are seeing or what we're seeing in those early successes.
So, just to mention with advising, not only have we changed to requiring students to come and see an advisor, we've also done multiple things. We've restructured with a career ladder. We have a new training and hiring process, caseload management, early alerts, a new comm plan for students, degree works plans, and using degree maps that were created through pathways. And then relational versus transactional advising. Just all of those efforts have kind of been underway for the last year and a half or so. And I think, this fall, the redirect program, the allied health programs, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but so far it's a new program for help students who are not accepted into those applicant programs to redirect them into another career path, and it's going very well. And so we're hoping that impacts our retention for students instead of losing them altogether, that we actually redirect here at TCC. But a lot of successes we're showing. We've seen a decrease in course withdrawals consistently from fall to fall and spring to spring. We've seen a decrease summer to summer of 16% on course withdrawals for students. Increase in good financial aid standing, decrease in financial aid suspensions by 11% from spring to spring. So just a lot of these little success measures that we're keeping an eye on and watching because they do mean something in a big package. And the biggest change, success we've seen is the earning of certificates and degrees of 20% since 2016. So while, we are seeing a service impact, I think we're also seeing some solid measures in a positive way. And one thing I wanted to mention too, beyond the student successes that we're seeing, back to the employees, as Sandy Cooper has mentioned to us from HR, an engaged employee usually results in student success. It rolls down to students. So seeing employees be happy and engaged in their work environment is obviously important. So
it's fantastic work that's happening, such great progress that advisors and career specialists, answer center specialists, all those frontline services are offering, and it's just really exciting to think that new way of doing business is going to benefit our students across the college in the next couple of years. Plans are well underway for the West Campus Center, getting ready to start for Northeast. Metro won't be far behind, and I think we have donors either who have already signed on board or who are shortly about to be announced, I think, for the rest of it. So the fact that it's all being supported by, we should say, Southeast, at least Tulsa County voters, because it's one of the Vision 2025 plans. But the other three centers are all coming from private dollars, not from college funds. So it's yet another sign of how important the college is to the community, so that the community is willing to stand behind us to do what's right for students. So Terri, we ask everybody, and I still almost can't believe this is your first time here, because I thought maybe we had visited with you before in the last few years, but we ask everybody the big question, and maybe we should just, I should just stop for a second and say, the reason we ask this question is because hopefully people will hear advice and maybe remember something that, I remember I listened to the podcast and Terri Alonso said this, and here's this student in my office, I'm going to pass that advice along to a student. So the question is, if you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old college-going self some advice, what would that be?
Yeah, it was just a couple years ago, right?
Yeah,
So
4 years ago.
We're not talking years. We're not, no dates.
So I would say to myself, follow your heart, trust your instincts, and listen to those who are encouraging you to be involved, whether it's a student activity on campus that night or a student group that you can really put a lot of work into. And then if you have a passion for it, jump in and try it. It will serve you well, even if you make mistakes, because those will happen anyway. Own them, and then know that the disappointment from your mistakes is temporary. Move on, and then always do your very best.
Good advice, not just for students, but for all of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you, Terri.
Mistakes are only temporary.
That's right.
Okay. Well, you've been listening to the Big Blue podcast. I'm Nicole Bergen, filling in for President Goodson and co-host Dr. Greg Stone. We want to thank our guest, Terri Alonso, for spending some time with us today, and we want to thank you for listening. Remember, you can catch the Big Blue podcast each week in The Week at TCC and on the Creativity channel at YouTube.